Metallica, the unchallenged titans of heavy metal, have ruled the stage for more than 4 decades. They've sold over 163 million albums globally and defined the sound of thrash metal for generations. But not every band has had the privilege of sharing the spotlight with them. Behind the grand tours and legendary shows lie tales of refusal, competitiveness, and mismatched energies. Today, we're breaking down the top 10 bands Metallica refused to tour with, and why. From punk icons to glam giants and bitter rivals, some of these reasons will surprise you. Number 10, Slipknot. Few bands in the modern era embody chaos, intensity, and theatrical aggression quite as well as Slipknot. Since their self-titled debut in 1999, they've been one of the most explosive live acts in the world, with 9 masked members tearing across the stage, pounding on drums, climbing scaffolding, and unleashing songs like Wait and Bleed and Duality. With Metallica being the biggest metal band on Earth, you'd think a joint tour between the two would be a no-brainer, but it never happened. The reason lies in intensity, control, and ego. Slipknot's live shows are sheer mayhem, intentionally frenzied and designed to overwhelm. Their pyro, masks, and chaos create a whirlwind of sound and spectacle. Metallica's concert, though still ferocious, are the opposite, tightly planned, controlled, and precise. Metallica aims for professionalism and consistency. Slipknot thrives on unpredictability. A co-headlining tour would have clashed ideologically. Metallica's surgical accuracy against Slipknot's unbridled anarchy. The audience difference made things even trickier. Slipknot's younger, high-energy crowd thrives on mosh pits and walls of death, while Metallica's spans generations, from original thrashers to parents bringing their kids. Mixing those fan bases could have been volatile, with one side craving chaos and the other anticipating classic anthems like Nothing Else Matters. Then there's the matter of pride. Both bands are headline-caliber acts, neither would open for the other. Who would close the show? Who would get more stage time? For Metallica, defenders of their throne, sharing that limelight with Slipknot was too risky. While Slipknot's Corey Taylor has repeatedly praised Metallica as a major influence, he's also admitted the two bands exist in different worlds. A Metallica-Slipknot tour remains one of the greatest what-ifs in metal history. It would have been epic but also combustible. Number 9, Creed. Say what you will, but Creed were huge in their heyday. Their album Human Clay sold more than 20 million copies worldwide, and radio-dominating anthems like Higher and With Arms Wide Open cemented them as arena headliners. Why didn't Metallica ever tour with them? The answer lies at the heart of musical philosophy, image, and audience mismatch. Creed leaned heavy toward sweeping, emotive ballads and spiritual overtones. Their frontman, Scott Stapp, brought a theatrical, almost gospel-like energy. Meanwhile, Metallica still built a legacy off raw aggression and darker introspection. Pairing the two would have been tonal chaos, one reaching toward the light, the other exploring man's shadows. At the end of the 1990s, Metallica was already under fire for having softened their sound on Load and Reload. The band members had shaved their heads, changed their logo, and dabbled in alternative rock, alienating fans. Teaming up with Creed, a band pilloried for its excessive commercialism, would have further decimated their credibility. Lars Ulrich himself decried bands that watered down their sound for radio, and Creed was everything Metallica didn't want to be. Their audiences didn't mix, either appealing to a lion's share of radio listeners and casual fans. Creed's fans were far from Metallica's relentless, circle-pitting, head-banging followers. A Creed fan swaying to With Arms Wide Open before Metallica burst into Battery was absolutely unthinkable. There was a much public feud, but the decision was deliberate. Metallica stuck to touring with acts that shared their edge, like Corrosion of Conformity or Pantera. Creed might have been chart toppers, but they didn't have the grit to share Metallica's stage. Number 8, The Offspring. On paper, a joint tour in the mid-1990s could have been world-dominating. In reality, it never happened, and that says a lot about where Metallica's mindset was at the time. Coming off the monumental success of the Black Album, Metallica had entered full-fledged rock superstardom. Songs like Enter Sandman and Nothing Else Matters brought them into the mainstream while maintaining their heavy roots. Meanwhile, The Offspring were spearheading a punk revival with their album Smash, featuring hits like Come Out and Play and Self-Esteem. Both bands were huge, but in very different ways. As frontman Dexter Holland would later say, Metallica's camp declined an invitation to tour together. The reason? Musical direction. Metallica was moving toward darker, more serious themes, while the Offspring style was playful and tongue-in-cheek. Later songs like Pretty Fly for a White Guy only reinforced their comedic, satirical side, something that clashed with Metallica's increasingly stern image. Lars Ulrich reportedly found the Offspring's punk humor incompatible with Metallica's vibe. There were some logistics issues, too. By the mid-90s, Metallica was selling out football stadiums, while the Offspring, though massively successful, were playing smaller venues. Pairing them up would have been uneven. And frankly, Metallica's ultra-serious headbangers probably wouldn't have taken too kindly to punk jokes sandwiched between thrash anthems, either. There was no bad blood, though. Holland later said he understood Metallica's reasoning. It was simply a matter of two worlds that didn't align. Fans can only imagine what that crossover might have looked like, a chaotic fusion of thrash and punk, half cheering, half confused, but unforgettable nonetheless. Number 7. Limp Bizkit. Love them or loathe them, there's no denying they were gigantic at their peak. With Fred Durst swaggering around in his red Yankees cap and tracksuits, the band spearheaded the nu metal explosion alongside Korn, Linkin Park, and Slipknot. Songs like Break Stuff, Rollin', and Nookie weren't just hits, they became rallying cries for a generation of frustrated youth. So why did Metallica, one of the biggest live acts in the world, never tour with Limp Bizkit during that same era? Both bands dominated MTV, radio, and festival circuits. On paper, it seemed like a perfect pairing. But in reality, it came down to three things: image, fans, and dependability. First, image. Metallica's brand has always been about grit, musicianship, and authenticity. Even when they attempted to go more mainstream with Load and Reload, the artistic core was still underlyingly serious. Limp Bizkit, however, was all theatrics and attitude that almost felt frat boy-like, seeming much more about the spectacle rather than the substance. In an interview from 2003, James Hetfield denounced some nu metal bands for being about mere shock value rather than artistry. He didn't name Limp Bizkit explicitly, yet his implication couldn't be clearer. Then came the fan base issue. Metallica's audience was fiercely loyal to heavy metal purity, while Limp Bizkit's fans gravitated toward rap rock crossover and rebellious youth culture. Throughout the Saint Anger era, Metallica already faced criticism for creative shifts and internal struggles. Teaming up with Limp Bizkit would alienate their core fans even more. It's hard to picture Metallica's diehard headbangers standing in the pit listening to Rollin' before Master of Puppets kicked in. Then there was the matter of reliability, or lack thereof. Limp Bizkit had become notorious for chaos after the infamous Woodstock '99 riots. The name meant disorder, and most promoters shied away from them. Metallica, fresh off their ambitious S&M Symphony project, were too smart to risk sullying their reputation on the stage alongside any notorious act. A Metallica Limp Bizkit tour would have been huge, but creatively and professionally, it would have been a disaster waiting to happen. Metallica stayed their course, while Fred Durst's band slid deeper into nu metal infamy. Different worlds, different roads, and Metallica wanted no part of that carryover. Number 6, Nickelback. Come on, guys, Nickelback were huge during the early 2000s. In 2001, their album Silver Side Up was seemingly everywhere, with the single How You Remind Me impossible to get away from. They were one of the most commercially successful rock bands of that decade. So, why did Metallica never tour with them? It does come down to one thing: image, credibility, and the expectations of their fans. Metallica has always seen itself as the people's band, raw, uncompromising, and steeped in metal authenticity. Nickelback, on the other hand, managed to develop a reputation as corporate rock, glossy, radio-friendly, and made for mass appeal. To Metallica's fan base, Nickelback represented all that the band had fought against during the early years. a collaboration would have screamed sellout. Timing was another factor. In the early 2000s, Metallica was already facing scorn for the Saint Anger album. Its raw production, lack of guitar solos, and generally abrasive sound weren't sitting well with fans. Pairing with Nickelback often mocked, as the face of watered-down rock would been PR suicide. The headlines alone would have been brutal. Metallica goes soft with Nickelback. The live contrast also didn't work. Metallica's concerts are about intensity circle pits, headbanging, and pure adrenaline. Nickelback shows, though popular, were built around sing-alongs and accessible rock anthems. Blending those crowds would have been awkward at best and catastrophic at worst. And then there's Nickelback's cultural baggage. By the mid-2000s, they'd become the butt of endless jokes, the band everyone mocked, but secretly knew the lyrics to. Metallica, busy rebuilding their legacy, didn't need that association. Sometimes the smartest move is the one you don't make, and avoiding Nickelback was definitely one of those. Number 5. Korn. When Korn burst onto the scene in the mid-1990s with their self-titled debut and follow-ups, like Follow the Leader and Issues, they pretty much single-handedly invented a new breed of heavy music. With down-tuned guitars, raw emotion, and Jonathan Davis's tortured vocals, they captured a generation's rage and pain. By the late 90s, Korn wasn't just a band, they were a movement. So why didn't Metallica, fellow metal titans, ever tour with them? Why? Sound, image, and fan culture. Korn's music was slower, darker, and more atmospheric than Metallica's thrash-driven precision. Their live shows were raw and haunting, with Davis often appearing on stage like a man exorcising demons. Metallica, on the other hand, were all about speed, tightness, and controlled aggression. Kirk Hammett even said in a 1999 interview that Metallica always liked touring with bands that kept them on their toes. Korn's moody, introspective performances did not quite fit that bill. Image was another key factor. Korn were the poster children of nu metal, a genre many traditional metal fans viewed as a passing trend. With baggy clothes, Adidas tracksuits, and confessional lyrics, Korn embodied late 90s youth rebellion. Metallica, already recovering from their own load and reload backlash, didn't need more confusion about their identity. Associating too closely with nu metal could have reinforced accusations that Metallica had abandoned their roots. Finally, the fan divide was just too wide. Korn appealed to the younger, angst-ridden fans, while Metallica's audience spanned generations. Mixing those crowds could have created tension rather than unity. Though both bands shared festival bills like Woodstock '99, a full co-headlining tour was never realistic. Metallica chose to surround themselves with acts that echoed their thrash heritage: Pantera, Slayer, and later, Avenged Sevenfold. Korn may have redefined heavy music for a new era, but Metallica made sure to keep them at arm's length when it came to sharing the road. Number 4. Kiss. Famous for their flamboyant costumes, face paint, fireworks, and larger-than-life stage theatrics, Kiss turned rock concerts into full-blown spectacles. They were the ultimate showmen. So why did two of the biggest names in rock and metal, Kiss and Metallica, never share a tour? The answer lies in ethos, image, and fan culture. From the beginning, Metallica built themselves as the anti-glam band. While acts like Motley Crue and Poison filled 1980s MTV with makeup, spandex, and catchy hooks, Metallica doubled down on authenticity and power. They wore jeans and t-shirts, avoided flashy effects, and insisted the music speak for itself. Lars Ulrich once derided glam metal as shallow and fake, without naming Kiss, but the implication was obvious. By the 1990s, the two bands were global juggernauts. Kiss was still packing arenas with pyrotechnics and blood-spitting theatrics, while Metallica had ascended to stadium-level dominance via raw musicianship and grit. But stylistically, they couldn't be further apart. A joint tour would have been a clash of philosophies, over-the-top spectacle versus no-frills intensity. For Metallica, though, it wasn't just the sounds being different. It was a question of holding true to a culture rejecting glam excess. Sharing a stage with Kiss would have blurred that line, and that was a risk Metallica would never take.